Okay, I gotta admit, the fight between Velstra and the unit that I'm gonna be talking about today are pretty fire and a much improvement upon the previous episode when they really have to put everything in the favor of Levidras for Levidras to actually win.
Brother,
But how good actually is second destined one that was reviewed on the show, Aelquilibra. That's it exactly what we're gonna be finding out today. So before we get into talking about the whole deck in itself, we have to talk about very prevalent mechanic in this deck in the form of a keyword, and that is
Overcharge skill.
So what exactly is Overcharge? Overcharge is a mechanic that triggers when a unit is being targeted by a Vanguard with a specific name. So at the moment of this recording, there's only one unit that can trigger all these Overcharge skill, and that is Aelquilibra, the boss of this deck. So for the rest of this video, if I'm saying this unit is Overcharge, essentially it is equate to when this unit is being targeted by a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Aelquilibra skill.
So, I believe I made myself clear.
Okay, so now that we have talked about the main mechanic, let's talk about the Rideline. As we're starting off with Rakuten Werfer Dragon. Hold on, is this a cousin of the Rakuten point? Nah, cannot be.
You serious?
Anyway, this unit has only 2 skills, where the very first skill is literally the replica of Blazemba Dragon and Ventesta, where when brought upon by Gatling Canone Dragon, the grade 2, you can call this card to Regard Circle. If you call, you have to Soul Charge 1. The Soul Charge is very helpful in this situation because of the way Aelquilibra works, and I mean, it as a Regard is actually pretty good as well, as when this unit is overcharged, this unit gets 10k. It is a very solid and flexible skill in the sense that it is nice to have on the field to use as a buffer for your booster, but at the same time, if this unit was removed from the field, people will not miss it because of the fact that all the overcharge unit in this deck more or less gain 10k as well. So good to have on the field and perfectly fine to be destroyed.
Understandable.
Which is rare in the current deck building where a lot of card is very crucial. So it is nice to see a card that has a use, but it's okay to not overwhelmingly protecting it as well. And then we have the grade 2 Gatling Canone Dragon. This unit only have 1 skill, unfortunately not an overcharge unit, but it is technically an overcharge unit searcher, as when brought upon by grade 3 cards with Aelquilibra in its name, look at top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less card from among them, review it, put it into your hand, and put the rest into the bottom of your deck in any order. If you review a card with overcharge ability, you soul charge 1 as well.
You suck.
As I mentioned just now, the soul is a very important cost for Aelquilibra skill, so this is good in itself, and this is so much better than Manticide Dragon. Manticide needs Energy Blast 3, and then you literally do more or less the same thing. Of course, there's no shuffling with this card, but I feel this is so much better than Manticide. A common theme I have been seeing as well, with all the grade 2 able to fetch anything that is grade 3 or less, which is pretty useful actually. Especially, you do need as many overcharge units as possible because of the way your boss unit works. As we have the destined one of scales, Aelquilibra. Okay, seriously, might as well call this card Equilibrium because it's literally very similar phonetics. Regardless, this unit has 2 skill only, where act once per turn, you can Soul Blast 2, choose 3 of your rare cards, and they get additional 5k until end of turn. If you choose 2 or more unit with Overcharge ability, you can draw a card and have this unit plus 10k as well. This is very simplistic and very good because it literally is an updated version of this skill. Is, in my opinion, is not a bad skill, especially you consider what the mechanic actually work as. Though one nitpick I have with it is the fact that choosing 3 rare cards also means that you have to be very careful on which last rare card you want to choose. I mean, let's be real, the first 2 you're gonna be choosing your front row unless the other card in your front row is not overcharged unit. So in my opinion, where the last 5k goes to one of your back row is very important because if you choose it wrongly, it can mean the loss of your DPS. And another nitpick I do have with this card is the fact that it's very simplistic. There is cards that literally just give multiple unit additional power, so this is nothing too crazy, though buffing almost your entire board is crazy in itself. So I do feel it has a potential to grow much stronger if this deck get additional support over time, but at the moment it feels a little bit underwhelming. But fortunately enough, this unit fix one of the pet peeve I have with this unit, where if your opponent Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1, choose 2 of your rear guards and they get additional 5k until end of turn. If your opponent damage zone has 4 or less cards, choose one of your opponent Vanguard, deal 1 damage, and the power increase of the trigger effect review for this effect damage check gets minus 10k.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Okay, I see a lot of people joke about how, oh, what if we damage check over trigger with this? Well, they are 100% right in making fun of it. But regardless, it is a very useful deal damage skill because the fact that it make sure that the damage will always guarantee a damage without giving opponent additional power is a good thing. That's a reason why I like Obina Grugio a lot, because trigger negation is strong in itself. Yes,
your opponent
still can get the additional benefit from this, but this ensures that the rest of your attack will not be affected for the rest of this turn unless your opponent check another trigger. So I do think this device skill is pretty solid but not overwhelmingly broken, especially if you're considering what we have seen so far with things like Blackmire or Versailles. Overall, a very balanced boss unit, and I think his support also really helped to make Aelquilibra shine.
Get some help.
As most of them are overcharged unit. As we start off with Dragritter Farisa, this unit has only one skill where when this unit is boosted and if this unit is overcharged this turn, this unit get additional 10k until the end of that battle, and at the end of that battle, if you haven't countercharged, you may retire this unit to do a countercharge. This is a very nice skill, and the reason why I say Rakuten Welfare Dragon is optional as a unit, and as I always said in the video, if your deck has a countercharge, it's always a good thing to have, especially for this deck, because as much as it doesn't really use a lot of counterblast
for your main game loop,
it does use it to gain a lot of advantage, which is something that Farisa helped to recover. And let's be real, Vaga did not get one, so if you are a Vaga player and you are very salty about this, the salt is warranted.
It's not fair!
Speaking of the other grade 1 with the similar overcharge skill, we have Dragritter Adil. Adil has 2 skills where when placed on Rega Circle, if you have 2 or more units with overcharge ability included itself, counterblast 1, draw a card, and you can soul charge 1 as well. Then overcharge skill, if this unit was overcharged this turn, this unit get 10k.
I'm a man of simple pleasures.
So essentially the very same overcharge skill as Rakuten Wafer. So like I said, the reason why Rakuten Wafer is a very useful grade 1 that doesn't need to be on the field. And the additional draw and soul shard is very nice because this is one of the only ways for you to get additional soul charge for Aelquilibra skill. But through my testing, this is enough. As long as you can play Adil once or twice, it is enough for Aelquilibra to use for his skill for more or less the entire game. And the best part about this card is the fact that it is not restricted to the Vanguard itself, minus the overcharge part, because this means that you can use it in the earlier part of the game as a way to rush early, and that's gonna be a common thing you see with most of the overcharge support as well. But before that, we have to talk about the only grade 3 overcharge card that we have received in this booster, and that's Panzer Shrek Dragon. Is your life Shrek? Regardless, this unit only have one skill, which is overcharge. When this unit attack and overcharge this turn, you can energy blast 3 and have that unit plus 15k until end of that battle, and at the end of that battle you have to draw a card and retire this unit. So essentially a very juiced up version of Bodo X Dragon that needs to be overcharged. This card is useful, but I would say energy blast 3 is very irritating, especially considering one of the best cards that we received in this initial support for overcharge deck is a restander, but I think it does have its use, and it is a very good target to this card because of a very unique order that we received together in the first wave of the support to equilibrate the scale of the world. This order can only be played if you have Aelquilibra Vanguard, and it requires 1 counterblast. And the skill of this order is choose up to 2 grade 3 or less cards with different card name with overcharge ability from your drop, call them to Rega Circle. This is a very nice card to have, considering you can't really run any of the discard cycler without affecting some of the resource that you need for your Vanguard skill and everything. So I do feel having this in your hand is really helpful compared to cards like Farhat, which technically can only call grade 1, even though it is an energy cycler and technically can be used in the deck with a counterblast.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
finishing up with the very last support of this deck, which is an Overcharge unit, and that unit is Dragritter Shaalhoop. Shaalhoop has 2 skills where during your turn, if you have 3 or more Overcharge unit, this unit get additional 5k, and when your Vanguard attack a grade 3 or greater unit, and if this unit was overcharged this turn, you may Energy Blast 3 stand this unit, and it gets additional 10k until end of turn.
It was perfect. Perfect.
This is literally Citron, a very powerful unit that gives additional attack to an otherwise a deck that would stay 3 attack most of the time. And I would say the card is very good purely for its first skill.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The second skill is strong, but I feel that additional 10k should have come a little bit earlier. And that's pretty much all the cards that has been reviewed so far for Aelquilibra. And let's talk about the good point and the bad point of the deck. The good part of the deck is that the deck can hit ridiculously high power as early as turn 3. A little bit like Rideline in that aspect. And not only that, it does have very good divine skill. Like, it is not OP, but it is not bad either. And at the same time, the first wave support is really solid in conjunction with the generic support that this deck technically can use with things like Fort Revoltis or Cabbage.
Stupid!
But the deck does have its own issue because without Shaalhoop, this deck is primarily a 3 attack deck, and secondly, it is a nitpick, but needing to target Overcharge unit for their skill to activate is a little bit of a deficit because after the divine skill, you are not able to target your whole board, and that means that it is a permanent loss of your DPS for the rest of the match. And then last but not least, I feel the hand size is a little bit lacking if you are not able to draw cards like Shenri or Adil in the earlier part of the game. So running draw, in my opinion, might be a better strategy than running front. But I have seen people who technically gain a lot of success running front as well. So I think it is heavily dependent on how you want to play your deck. And that's Aelquilibra, the boss name that is super fucking hard to pronounce, but it is actually a very solid Rideline, especially if you compare to the very first Destined one that we have received so far, and that is Levidras. It is definitely a lot better. But who knows, the rest 4 of the Destined one might have a lot more in store than we think it is, so let's wait and see. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Take care of yourself, don't forget to clap that sub and become a member for cool perks, and this is Mac Mechanic signing out.